Kenya's political history is a tapestry woven with threads of struggle, hope, and often, betrayal. Since gaining independence in 1963, Kenya has witnessed the ebb and flow of political powers, each promising transformative change. Yet the journey has been marred by ethnic tensions, power struggles, and sporadic violence. The legacy of leaders like Jomo Kenyatta and Daniel Arap Moi looms large, their reigns characterized by both development and despotism. The introduction of multi-party democracy in the early 1990s marked a significant turning point, promising a new dawn for Kenya. However, this promise has often been overshadowed by the same age-old issues. Political parties have risen and fallen, alliances formed and shattered, leaving citizens caught in the tumult. The 2007 post-election violence stands as a grim reminder of the volatility that underlies Kenya's political scene. Even with a new constitution in 2010 aimed at decentralizing power and reducing ethnic conflict, political machinations continue to dominate the landscape. The specter of corruption and electoral malpractice further complicates the quest for genuine democratic governance. The evolution of Kenya's political parties reflects the shifting dynamics of power. Initially, the Kenya African National Union, or KANU, was the dominant force. But with time, opposition parties like the Orange Democratic Movement, or ODM, emerged, challenging the status quo. This has led to a more vibrant, albeit tumultuous, political environment. The emergence of coalitions such as the Jubilee Alliance and its successor Kenya Kwanza illustrates the fluid nature of Kenyan politics, where alliances are often based on expediency rather than ideology. As Kenyans navigate this complex political terrain, the challenge remains to reconcile the rhetoric of democracy with the reality experienced by its citizens. The interplay of power and governance is a delicate dance, one that continues to shape the nation's future. History has shown that while the faces of leadership may change, the underlying issues often persist. Understanding this historical context is crucial to grasping the current political drama unfolding in Kenya today. The Orange Democratic Movement, or ODM, has long been a beacon of hope for many Kenyans. Emerging from the tumultuous political landscape of the early 2000s, the ODM positioned itself as a champion of democracy and reform. Its leader, Raila Odinga, is a charismatic figure whose political journey is as storied as the party itself. For many Kenyans, ODM symbolizes resistance to entrenched power structures and the perpetual struggle for a just society. Its roots are deeply embedded in the quest for equitable representation and governance. Over the years, ODM's relationship with the Kenyan populace has been characterized by a deep sense of trust and shared aspirations. The party's ability to galvanize support across various ethnic and social lines has been a testament to its enduring appeal. In many ways, ODM has become synonymous with the people's voice, advocating for policies that promise to uplift the marginalized and foster inclusivity. The party's rallies often draw massive crowds, reflecting its widespread popularity and the hope it instills in its supporters. However, ODM's journey has not been without challenges. Internal divisions and external pressures have occasionally threatened its cohesion. Critics argue that the party has sometimes failed to deliver on its lofty promises, leading to disenchantment among some supporters. Despite these setbacks, ODM has remained a formidable force in Kenyan politics. Its resilience is evident in its ability to adapt and evolve, maintaining its relevance in a rapidly changing political landscape. As Kenya approaches another election cycle, ODM's role and relationship with the public will be crucial. The party's ability to articulate a clear and compelling vision for the future will determine its impact on the national stage. In a political environment rife with uncertainty, ODM stands as a reminder of the potential for change when the will of the people is harnessed effectively. Its legacy and future are inextricably linked to the aspirations of millions of Kenyans yearning for a better tomorrow. The political landscape in Kenya is currently dominated by a tense standoff between the ruling government, Kenya Kwanza or KK, and the opposition, led by ODM. This conflict is emblematic of the broader struggle for power and influence that characterizes Kenyan politics today. At the heart of this dispute lies a fundamental disagreement over governance and the direction in which the country should be heading. Kenya Kwanza, with its roots in the Jubilee Alliance, represents continuity and the consolidation of power, while ODM stands as a counterbalance, advocating for reform and accountability. The tension between these two political behemoths has been a focal point in recent years. The battle for parliamentary majority status, which saw the Azimio la Umoja coalition party, aligned with ODM, assert its dominance, is a case in point. This development has significant implications for the legislative agenda and the balance of power within the National Assembly. It underscores the fraught nature of political alliances and the fluidity with which they can shift. The court's decision to recognize Azimio's majority status reflects a victory for ODM, but also highlights the ongoing challenges in navigating Kenya's political waters. Kenya Kwanza's response to this shift has been swift and strategic. The party has sought to undermine ODM's influence through various means, including leveraging its control over key state apparatuses. This has resulted in a highly charged political environment, with accusations of political cleansing and manipulation rife. The perceived bias of figures like Speaker Moses Wetangula, whose actions were deemed unconstitutional, adds fuel to the fire. Such maneuvers exacerbate tensions and threaten to destabilize an already fragile political landscape. As the political drama unfolds, the stakes continue to rise. The conflict between ODM and KK is not merely a battle for power, it is a struggle for the soul of the nation. The outcome will have far-reaching implications for governance, democracy, and the everyday lives of Kenyans. In this high-stakes game, the actions and decisions of political leaders will reverberate across the country, shaping its future trajectory. The concept of leadership in Kenya is often viewed through a lens of skepticism and cynicism. Failures in leadership have been a recurring theme, with successive governments falling short of delivering on their promises. This has resulted in a pervasive sense of disillusionment among the populace. The disconnect between leaders and citizens is stark, with the former often perceived as being out of touch with the realities faced by ordinary Kenyans. This disconnect is further exacerbated by instances of corruption, nepotism, and a lack of accountability. In recent times, the notion of political cleansing has gained traction as a tool employed by those in power to consolidate their position. This involves purging dissenting voices and marginalizing opposition figures, thereby stifling genuine democratic discourse. Such tactics have been employed by the ruling Kenya Kwanza government in its bid to weaken ODM and other opposition entities. The erosion of democratic principles in favor of political expediency is a worrying trend that threatens to undermine the very foundations of governance in Kenya. These failures in leadership and governance have tangible consequences for the country's development. When political leaders prioritize personal gain over public service, the entire nation suffers. The lack of visionary leadership and strategic planning has hampered progress and stifled innovation. Furthermore, the culture of impunity that permeates the political arena discourages meaningful reform and perpetuates a cycle of mediocrity. This is a significant barrier to achieving the transformative change that many Kenyans desperately seek. For Kenya to move forward, there must be a concerted effort to address these leadership failures. This requires a shift in mindset from both leaders and citizens alike. The former must embrace transparency, integrity, and accountability, while the latter must demand and uphold these values. Only through such collective action can Kenya hope to break free from the shackles of poor leadership and realize its full potential as a nation. Section 5. Economic consequences of political struggles. The impact of political instability on Kenya's economy is profound and far-reaching. At its core, political turbulence creates an environment of uncertainty, which is detrimental to economic growth. Investors, both domestic and international, are wary of putting their money into a country fraught with political risk. This hesitancy stifles investment and limits economic opportunities, ultimately hindering progress and development. Political instability, therefore, acts as a brake on economic momentum, preventing Kenya from achieving its full potential. The recent power struggles between ODM and Kenya Kwanza illustrate the economic repercussions of political discord. The uncertainty surrounding legislative processes and policy direction undermines confidence in the Kenyan economy. Key sectors such as tourism, agriculture, and manufacturing are particularly vulnerable to these political dynamics. When governance is inconsistent and unpredictable, businesses find it challenging to plan and operate effectively. This results in reduced productivity, job losses, and a decline in overall economic performance. Moreover, political instability often leads to a misallocation of resources. In their bid to maintain power, political leaders may prioritize short-term gains over long-term development strategies. This can result in wasteful expenditure, corruption, and inefficiencies, further exacerbating economic challenges. The focus shifts from nation-building to political survival, with dire consequences for the country's economic health. The cost of political instability is thus borne by ordinary Kenyans, who experience its effects in the form of inflation, unemployment, and diminished living standards. Addressing these economic consequences requires a commitment to creating a stable political environment. This involves fostering a culture of dialogue, compromise, and collaboration among political leaders. By prioritizing the national interest over individual ambitions, Kenya can create a conducive atmosphere for investment and growth. Only through such concerted efforts can the country hope to overcome the economic challenges posed by political instability and pave the way for a prosperous future. Section 6. Public disillusionment and the 2027 elections. Public disillusionment with Kenya's political class is at an all-time high. Decades of unfulfilled promises, corruption, and political machinations have left many Kenyans feeling disenfranchised and disillusioned. The gap between the political elite and the ordinary citizen has widened, eroding trust in the democratic process. This sentiment is particularly pronounced among the youth, who make up a significant portion of the population. Their disillusionment is fueled by high unemployment rates, limited opportunities, and a lack of representation. As the country looks towards the 2027 elections, these feelings of disenchantment are likely to play a pivotal role. The electorate's appetite for change is palpable, with many Kenyans yearning for leaders who genuinely represent their interests. However, the challenge lies in translating this desire for change into meaningful political action. Voter apathy remains a significant concern, as many citizens question the efficacy of participating in a system they perceive as inherently flawed. The risk is that this apathy could lead to lower voter turnout, weakening the mandate of any government that assumes power. The 2027 elections thus present both an opportunity and a challenge. On one hand, they offer a chance for citizens to demand accountability and drive change through the ballot box. On the other hand, they pose the risk of further entrenching the status quo if voter engagement remains low. Political parties and leaders must therefore strive to re-engage the public and rebuild trust in the democratic process. This requires a commitment to transparency, accountability, and genuine representation. Ultimately, the 2027 elections will serve as a litmus test for the resilience of Kenya's democracy. They will determine the trajectory of the nation's political landscape and its capacity to address the challenges facing its citizens. In this critical moment, the voice of the people will be paramount, shaping not only the outcome of the election, but the future of the country. Section 7. The fading voice of democracy. Democracy in Kenya, once a beacon of hope for many, is facing a critical juncture. The principles of democratic governance, including free and fair elections, freedom of expression, and the rule of law, are under threat. Political machinations and power struggles have overshadowed genuine democratic discourse, leading to a sense of disillusionment among citizens. The erosion of democracy is not just a theoretical concern, it has tangible implications for the everyday lives of Kenyans. The fading voice of democracy is evident in the increasing centralization of power and the marginalization of opposition voices. The current political climate, characterized by the conflict between ODM and Kenya Kwanza, reflects a broader trend of suppressing dissent and consolidating power. This undermines the very foundations of democratic governance, which rely on checks and balances, accountability, and the ability to challenge authority. When these principles are compromised, the democratic process is weakened, and the voice of the people is silenced. This erosion of democracy has significant implications for governance and policy making. Without a robust democratic framework, decision-making becomes opaque and unaccountable. This can lead to policies that do not reflect the needs and priorities of the populace. Furthermore, the lack of democratic engagement stifles innovation and progress, as diverse perspectives and ideas are not adequately represented. The result is a governance system that is out of touch with the realities and aspirations of its citizens. To address this democratic deficit, there must be a concerted effort to reinvigorate the principles of democratic governance. This includes strengthening institutions, promoting transparency, and encouraging civic engagement. By empowering citizens and ensuring their voices are heard, Kenya can revitalize its democracy and pave the way for a more inclusive and equitable society. The future of democracy in Kenya depends on the collective will of its people to demand and uphold these values. Section 8. Choices facing Kenyans in 2027. As the 2027 elections approach, Kenyans are faced with a crucial decision that will shape the nation's future. The choices before them are stark, reflecting the broader political and social dynamics at play. On one hand, there is the allure of continuity, represented by the ruling Kenya Kwanza government. This option promises stability and a continuation of the policies and governance style that have characterized the current administration. On the other hand, there is the promise of change, embodied by the opposition, led by ODM. This path advocates for reform, accountability, and a departure from the status quo. The decision facing Kenyans is not merely a choice between political parties, it is a choice about the direction they want their country to take. It is a decision about the kind of leadership they desire and the values they wish to uphold. This choice is further complicated by the pervasive sense of disillusionment and skepticism that has taken root among the populace. Many Kenyans are wary of political promises, having been let down numerous times in the past. This cynicism poses a significant challenge for both the ruling party and the opposition as they seek to rally support. In making this choice, Kenyans must consider the broader implications of their decision. They must weigh the benefits of stability against the potential for transformative change. They must assess the credibility and track record of political leaders and parties, taking into account their ability to deliver on their promises. This requires a critical examination of policies, platforms, and the vision each entity presents for the future of Kenya. In this context, informed and engaged citizenry will be crucial to ensuring that the choice made reflects the aspirations and needs of the nation. Ultimately, the 2027 elections represent a pivotal moment in Kenya's political journey. The choices made will have far-reaching consequences for governance, democracy, and the socio-economic landscape. As Kenyans head to the polls, the hope is that they will choose leaders who genuinely represent their interests and are committed to building a better, more equitable future for all. Section 9. Political stability and economic growth. Political stability and economic growth are inextricably linked, each reinforcing the other in a virtuous cycle. For Kenya, achieving political stability is a prerequisite for sustainable economic development. When governance is stable and predictable, it creates a conducive environment for investment and innovation. This, in turn, drives economic growth, job creation, and improved living standards. Conversely, political instability serves as a significant barrier to economic progress, deterring investment and stifling development. The current political climate in Kenya, characterized by the conflict between ODM and Kenya Kwanza, poses a challenge to achieving this stability. The ongoing power struggles and political maneuvering create an atmosphere of uncertainty, undermining confidence in the country's governance and economic prospects. This uncertainty is felt acutely by businesses and investors, who are wary of the risks associated with operating in a volatile environment. As a result, economic growth is hampered and opportunities for progress are lost. For Kenya to realize its economic potential, there must be a concerted effort to foster political stability. This requires a commitment to dialogue and compromise among political leaders, as well as a focus on governance that prioritizes the national interest over individual ambitions. By fostering a culture of collaboration and mutual respect, Kenya can create a stable and predictable political environment that encourages investment and innovation. Ultimately, the path to economic prosperity in Kenya lies in the pursuit of political stability. By addressing the underlying issues that contribute to political instability, the country can create a solid foundation for sustainable growth and development. The future of Kenya's economy depends on the ability of its leaders and citizens to work together towards a common vision of stability, prosperity, and progress.